Well, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Pastor Donald Kirshner, and I want to welcome you to the Montville United Methodist Church, a place that is loving, inclusive, integrity-filled, and supportive, a church that offers hope and purpose to all people. We're so grateful for you to join us on this second program in a series that we're calling a Spring Musical Festival, with a unique and different flair of music and songs and beautiful things coming forth from instruments and voices each and every time we gather. Many of you know last time we had a combination of sacred and secular music, more in the classical realm, and this month we are excited to welcome Mark Wright, who is going to be bringing New Orleans jazz to us that is sure to put you in a spirit that gets your feet a-moving, your heart a-thumping with excitement. And between what you hear from Mark, we're also going to have a special part of our service tonight, our program that is dedicated to Memorial Day. We know that today is the official day for Memorial Day, and so we'll have a special Memorial Day tribute. And so the blue program you received will kind of invite you to see what is ahead. And then the little white sheet, we know this is a free concert, but every time we gather, we want to have a different cause or organization, something that we just invite for whoever is willing or wanting to give toward it. And this month's focus toward something going on in the community is to the American Cancer Society, because in just 8 days, our whole Montville Township community is going to be gathering at the Montville High School track. We're going to be walking laps, survivors, caregivers, and all people. And whether you've had someone in your family who has been impacted by cancer, lost someone to cancer, this is something that all funds will go to support patients, to support further research and advocacy efforts. And so if you feel led, know that there's a basket in the back. And even if you're interested in dedicating a luminaria, which is something to do in honor or memory of someone, there's also a sign-up sheet in the back that you can put your name or the person's name that you'd like to do it in honor or memory of. But we are excited. We hope you are excited as well. And so without further ado, we want to invite Mark Wright forward, and he's going to share a little bit before he officially begins playing, but we welcome you, Mark, and are so glad to have you with us.
Well, as you heard, my name is Mark Wright. I was an English teacher, a high school English teacher, for 34 years in Bergen County. But also always played music. My father played sax, and I played with him. He played up to his 98th year and played 40 jobs as a 98-year-old. So, but of course, I had to play with him all the time. So we were together forever doing it. But I had classical lessons for 10 years, and I was a pretty serious classical musician. And then my brother went to New Orleans in 1969 and said to me, "You have to go to a place called Preservation Hall. You will love it." So I let it go of a year or so, and I went down to the hall. I went there on a Thursday night, and I heard Kid Thomas Valentine play, and I had never heard anything like it. It was all wrong. Everything I had been taught. The rhythms were all in the wrong places, and it was so exciting, and it was wonderful. And I said, I know I'm the wrong age, and I'm the wrong color, but someday I'm going to play in this place. I wanted to figure out how to do it. So fortunately, one of my students was at Tulane and had a house. So that first week I stayed there, was only there a week. I went to the hall every night. I sat on the floor of the hall and listened to everything I could hear. The second year, I went down for the whole summer, which is a terrible time to go to New Orleans. It is so hot, it's so humid, but it's the only time I could get off school to go. And one of my students was at Tulane and rented a house and said, "You can have the house for the summer. We don't have anything." So I rented a piano. Now I had nothing in the house. The house was totally empty, and we brought a piano. The only piece of furniture we had was the stool on the piano, and I slept on the air mattress on the floor. I'd go to the hall every night and then come back and play what I heard, because my father and I both had I guess it's inherited kind of ability to play by ear. We also could read music, but we played by ear. So I picked up loads of songs. That whole summer, I played every night, came back. Then I bought every record I could buy and came home and I played with the records. The second year, I came down and the people at the rental place remembered me because it's pretty weird to rent a piano to a house that's totally empty. They said, do you want it? We have an old piano. And would you want it? So I asked the kids and they said, yeah, we'll take it. So I said, I just paid to have it moved up. That piano was my key because it was so flat that I could play it. You know, I kind of fixed it as much as I could. But then I had a party for the musicians in the middle of the summer, and they came. And I couldn't find an A to tune to them. But instead I had to transpose everything up a half key so that I could play the same. That's kind of hard to explain, but it was something I did just by ear. I said, don't give me too many solos, but eventually I took some solos. And the next night, one of the musicians said, you the man that does cross chording? I thought, cross chording? What is cross chording? And I guess he meant transposing. I said, yeah. He said, you want to play with the band? So that was the first time I played with the band. And then from then on, every night I was in the hall for 30 years. I went back for 30 years. I played with the band, and sometimes out of it. And twice when I go down, they would give me the whole night with the band. So that paid for my trip. And so I was so lucky. I was the kid. Now I'm as old as the youngest of the ones when I went there. And my hands are starting to wear out, but I might as well shut up and play. This reminds me, I like something about New Orleans here. Look, they had no stage. You're playing on the same level as everybody else. And that is part of what is great about New Orleans jazz. It is functional music, functional folk music, truly the music of the folks. And it's used for parades, for funerals, and what else? For dances. Those are the three big events. I've never heard of a wedding. They do have them, but I've never heard about too much weddings there. But I'm sure they do. But I got to live in that world, and so I talk to you at the same level. It's not always easy for trombone players when people are, walking around and everything. But I'll know. And I'm sorry you can't see my hands. You don't want to see my hands anyway. But I asked Steve if I could open it up because I like to look at your faces and everything. So if you're falling over in boredom, I can see. So okay. So I'll start out. With I'm going to play some holy. Some of the spiritual kind of music, like that I learned there, like listen. what I did there was to change the rhythm, and I kind of asked myself as I was driving, why? And that just is part of life there. And you know, funerals are very, if you have a jazz funeral, in fact, a lot of people don't want them anymore because it's covered by the 6 o'clock news, and they become so full of tourists and everybody, and they kind of lose some of the home feeling about it. But basically, that rhythm is there. The drummer is the center of a New Orleans band, which has got 7 pieces in it by tradition, but that's a tradition invented by Northerners. There are really not firm rules. In New Orleans, I had to shut up all the time and just play and learn from them. And they taught me, like for instance, they told me, first time I played with the band, I was playing, you know, like a, and they said, no, 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 no. There and below. That's what you play. I said, but I can play more. No, you play there and below. We're not backing you. We are working together. And that really was so useful to me. We are working together. So if I was playing a song with them, like the first song, let's try another one, like, let's see what, let me get out of the key. To be a frame for the other musicians, so that when a trombone player was playing, then I could go up higher. I mean, the rules are not absolutely fixed, so that he could hear on the other side. Because another thing, we don't use microphones. Microphones are weapons, I think. Personally, I feel they're weapons. If you know, I have the power, and so I can deafen you. And yeah, I know people are deaf and everything too, but if you have a microphone, you impose yourself on people. I don't like that. And the nice thing about the whole, you had to learn how to listen to other musicians and to watch an audience and watch the way they move. It's all part of it, because I remember an old musician telling me once, well, we're only part of the event. We're the music, but we're not performers. We're not show-offs. This is very uncomfortable in a way. It's because it looks like fun, but it's much more fun for me to play with other musicians and work together. We communicate, and if you're dancing, well, I know you're Methodist, so I'm not sure if that's the old rules I was told. But if you are. We're doing our part. We're all part of the event. I'll show you the funeral, the most famous. I never knew this funeral hymn to went to New Orleans, the most famous one, which you probably have heard. Now it's become kind of popular up here. Let's see. Let me find a good. if you came to a funeral, and I avoided them. I came from New Jersey. I didn't go recreationally to funerals. So, I thought that's rude. It's not rude in New Orleans. It's considered a compliment to the family if a huge crowd comes. So, and I once was in Africa, and friends of mine were working in the hospital in Ethiopia. And the problem was that when a funeral walked by, the doctors left. Everybody left and joined the funeral because it was, it's part of the culture. But in New Orleans, it's that way too. So I missed many good funerals. But I did end up going to some. And at the funeral, of course, outside, I didn't go into the funeral home if I didn't know the person. That is, still have some manners from the North. But, other people probably do too. I don't know what to say about that. But you stay out on the street, there might be 300 people on the street, and you hear this sound, like that same hymn played, let's see, in the funeral home. And then they will come out of the funeral home, and on either side of the walkway out, they will play, and they will bring the casket out, and they will rock the casket. Now, I've never seen anything like that up here. I brought friends into a few friends from graduate school. We drove, and we arrived, and a friend of mine had died, a great bass player. And they invited, and it was a big Catholic church. By the way, most black people in New Orleans are Roman Catholic. It's unlike the rest of the South, although these hymns are much more, Baptist types of hymns. But those, there are no rules. There are rules, but they're not written. And nothing is, because that's probably the whole thing. It's not, you learn by hearing everything. So they would, and my friends said also, it's very moving when you see the casket being rocked like that to the band. And then nowadays, because New Orleans is 3 feet below sea level, most of it, you can't bury people in the city. So most times they'll play like that. Then the people get in their cars, and the bands too, and they'll go outside the city to bury somebody, and then they will reassemble, and they'll play they'll play at the funeral. Let's see. played very reverently. But then you'll come out of the funeral, out of the cemetery, and then it's what's called the turnaround. Now the turnaround is not wild. I mean, everybody knows the Saints. That's generally what, and incidentally, when we played in the hall, we got so sick of playing the Saints that they raised the tip, how much to play the tip. When I first went there, it was $5, and then when it was 20, I think, eventually when I left for sympathy, you get it. But the Saints was a funeral home, a funeral hymn originally too. So the Saints, if you played at the funeral, would be generally 30 verses. You would be playing, and if you had a band of people thrown together, and you had clarinets, they even had special, in the old days, E-flat clarinets that could play higher than the others. So everybody's building chords on top of other people to just kind of, I don't know, it's hard to explain what it is, but it is not wild and fast, but it's got the beat. It's got the New Orleans beat. And I have played, there are probably 100 of us maybe who play New Orleans jazz. It's not Dixieland. It's something else. It's different every time we play it. There's no arrangement. I'm playing by ear. Yeah, well, I don't know. I wouldn't be arrogant enough to say that, but I think it's no, not for you. I mean, for you to talk about me doing that, but yeah, it's got to come. Has to come from inside. In fact, I've told Steve this too. When I'm playing a service and I play traditional hymns, in the Episcopal Church, I love our old hymns, but I always play New Orleans during the communion, and not wild, and on the piano, not on the organ. We have, thanks to our whole church, and we together have restored our 36 rank pipe organ, with a wonderful expert who led us how to do it, and Linda's met him and Steve has met him. He's been here and fixed this one up. So I should probably let you hear that. But really, it's hard to explain, but it isn't performance to me. I know there's a lot of people who like to be the soloists and everything, but that's my prayer. And I'm never nervous. I make mistakes. I don't care. I do the best I can do. Sometimes I screw up and that doesn't matter. I'm doing the best I can do, and I'm just not nervous about doing that. But this is more, you got to try to hit the right notes and everything. But you know, I was an English teacher because I kind of did it by, and I think I was a fairly good English teacher. But music, I breathe. That was it almost was too important for me to teach because I just didn't. So I never taught it. But Steve's with me. Steve's one of my last students, I said. You know, here he is, Steve. And he's brilliantly musical. And so, you know, it's lovely to deal with somebody who loves classical music, too. And I do, too. It's just another world, you know. And so, anyway, Steve, maybe you want to do, Steve's going to play some of your wonderful little organ here. And it's small, but he makes it sound mighty and wonderful. And then I'll play some pop New Orleans stuff, and you know, it's what you see. Because I can talk all night, and I don't want you to fall off the pews here. You know, I do talk a lot. So, but okay, is that all right?
Beautiful.
Okay, all right. Go ahead. Steve is a wonderful organist. He knows I'm a faker. I fake it everything. I mean, I fake New Orleans music too. So he knows the right way of doing things. I'll get that.
So I thought that we would have extreme contrast and use a little bit of the organ, or use the organ a little bit, since it's in such great shape nowadays. But as it's the traditional Memorial Day, I thought I'd play two pieces that come to mind. The famous Fanfare for the Common Man by Aaron Copland, very much associated with national holidays and things like that. And a little piece by an English composer, Frank Bridge. You've never heard of him, but he was very respected and a wonderful craftsman, specialized in string music. He was a great violist. But he wrote other things, even an opera called A Christmas Rose. Wonder what that sounds like. Who knows? But so these are just two brief pieces that will show different colors and moods of the organ. The first very elegiac, poignant, and the second splashy. for the fanfare, I'm going to open a door to let out some more sound. It really enhances the trumpet sound of the organ.
When Jim, the repairman, and I went in there, all the what are called the 4-foot pipes of the organ were not playing. And we couldn't figure out what was wrong. Somebody had put Scotch tape over the mouths of every one of those pipes. And because there was a bigger problem, and rather than solve it, they just put plastic, put tape over it. But we got them back. They're all back, I think.
Yes, everything works right now with this organ. You probably didn't know it could get that loud.
Well, I'll start by playing the first song I ever heard of New Orleans, but I will take requests. But of course, I only know mostly things of my grandfather's age. I didn't play, my father played mostly swing music, and I can play stuff up to the 30s, and but my favorite kind of period is about 1927. That was before I was born, about 20 years before I was born. But I kind of like that. But I can stretch a bit into the 50s, but Don't ask me to do Beatles or weird stuff like that. That is, I mean, I can do it by ear. If you can sing it, I can play it. But I'm not. I'm a freak, as Jesus will tell you. Will testify. but I'm teaching him to be one too. So all right. So let me show you. The first song I heard was one of my grandfather's songs. Let's see. This is New York, New Jersey. Anybody know it? First song I heard Kid Thomas play, he was the most percussive trumpet player I ever heard. I mean, he played the trumpet like a drum, not full of all kinds of notes. It's so exciting, and all the accents, as I say, were wrong, but they were so right. And I said, I must play with Kid Thomas. That's my idol. But to get, it was generally was that Thomas didn't play with too many white people. So I had to be real careful. No, I had to prove to him that I could do it. So I had to play some blues, and I apparently passed. Nothing was said, you don't get said, but you just discover when you're invited and you do it, and you don't say anything, and you don't do this, and you never try to make all of this make sense of New Orleans, because it doesn't make sense. One of the drummers had a heart attack when we were playing on a Saturday night, and the quarter is the wildest on a Saturday night, and to get an ambulance was complicated, and they got an ambulance, but they said, who will go to the hospital with him? So I went to the hospital. I knew these people. They're my heroes. And I went into the hospital, and they said, and I told them his name and his wife's name and all these things, and I knew he was born now, I can remember 1913, and I said, and how are you related? I said, and they said to me, honey, this is New Orleans, stranger things has happened. So I realized that the rules don't apply. But I was always the one to learn. I never tried to teach anybody anything. I knew nothing. I was there to learn as much as I could. And I picked up a little of it. So we played, but let's see. Blues, because blues is kind of the basis of a lot of this music, and New Orleans blues is a little more sophisticated than Mississippi blues, which there's one more chord, I guess. I don't know the names of the chords, but I play them. my father played with a wonderful old piano player who was what they called a stride piano player. And he had huge hands. He worked for the water company, the local water company, and so like all of us, they were part-time musicians. But his left hand could play, instead of octaves, he played in tenths. And I stretched my left hand so that I could play in tenths. Because and he was so impressed that he wrote out songs for me to play with my father when I was 10 years old. I've still saved those. But I'll show you, I try to play some of his tenths because, I don't know, it's just something that was just made the piano richer. And it's not always the easiest thing to do, but fortunately, I think I can still do it. But, so let's see. Oh yeah, this was, that's, I can still stretch them with the left. And you throw them where you feel where they're the right place to do. You also hear me play what are sometimes called dirty notes or blue notes, and I also play off the beats because I learned that in New Orleans, but I also learned it by playing Brahms. So it's kind of weird that there was things that I learned before I went down there that applied in funny different ways. But playing dirty notes, once in a while, a former student of mine played a wonderful cello, and his father was a violinist, and we had a little trio, and we played classical music. We played on Sunday afternoons, but every once in a while, I accidentally would throw a dirty note in. And the dirty notes are because the piano, you can't bend notes on the piano. So you've got to... So I don't know if anybody wants, you have any kind of requests, if I can possibly play them. I've got, I mean, I can play all night. It's such a good piano. If you give me a good piano, and I love it. You know, it's so much fun to play when you have a good instrument. The pianos are pretty awful in New Orleans usually. The Palm Court has a Steinway though that I like playing. People think, oh, you must like playing those rinky-tinky pianos. No, they're awful to play. You don't need. I don't need help to be bad. I have natural talent there. I can hit plenty of wrong notes. I don't need the piano to help me and hit even more wrong notes. So I don't like that. That's schlock. Give me a decent piano, and I'll mess it up. But one of my students' sisters teaches piano at Juilliard, and but I've known her since she was 5 years old, and she invited me to her wedding last May. And at her sister's wedding, they moved a Berzendorf outside for her to play some Liszt. And I played dirty New Orleans songs. So we kind of, you know, we fit together. And it's another world. But I'm so grateful that I you know, as a relative kid, you know, it was my 20s, I was able to learn from the people who founded jazz in America. And they weren't all the greatest musicians, but we played in the same way, in the sense that we just, it's different every night. It depends on the room, and you know, people say, well, how did you do that? I don't know how we did it. I won't do it again. It's just something we had, and I was just so you know, I don't know, just so tremendously honored to be able to play with them. And we became great friends, and they're all gone now that's founded the hall. Two of them were born in the 1880s. They were the earliest people. They played, one made his first recording for Edison in 1910, you know, and Kid Thomas started playing in 1914 and stopped playing when he was in 1987, I think.
So, Mark,
yeah.
I'll interrupt. The dates are striking in that this piano was built in 1911.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, that's great. Pianos don't get better with age. This one has. This is great. This is good. Pianos don't.
And the organ, 1912.
Oh yeah! Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That's contemporary with me. So I hope to be able to keep playing as long as they did. My father was through his 98th year. He fell when he was 99. He died 3 weeks short of 100. And he would have played. He tried to play at 99, but in a wheelchair to get the sax around, take the arms off, you know, it was too complicated. But you know, we just, you know, breathe music. So I felt tremendously at home in New Orleans, but that world is gone now. But that's a chapter in my life, and you know, and it was a blessing. And yeah.
Could you, I can't think of a song to
Sure.
ask you to play.
Yeah.
But could you play something from the era that you're familiar with in the style that you play?
Yeah.
And tell us what it is?
Sure.
Tell us the name of it, like, because we're trying to figure out some of these things, the ones that you're playing.
Yeah. Well, some of them I'm making up, but
And we hear
yeah.
a tune, but we're not sure.
Yeah. You were. I
Why
saw.
not take all of me? Was that it? Why not take all of me?
Yeah, okay, that was all me. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I forgot to
so
tell you
we're
that.
right, yeah.
Yeah, that's all. This is my music. When I play places, it's about 100 cards with titles all on them. So if I can remember, let's see if I can. Let's see. Let's do. And sometimes I can take a Gershwin song, which they're gorgeous songs. Let's see. code song in New Orleans. When the band plays a funeral for a wife and wives are the saints in New Orleans that put up with musicians, because New Orleans musicians always have some other company to themselves. And I never met wives, because they'd never bring their wife to the hall. But they'd always bring some woman to come with them, and I'd say, well, who's that? And they wouldn't explain who they were, but I got to know. So there were some wives that, if at the wife's funeral, they played the funeral. If they played Lady Be Good, we knew that was not a lady that was very popular with the band. But I stayed out of all these things. They always kind of used me like, tell them that I was out fishing with you. No, I didn't want to get involved in all that kind of stuff. It was such a, it was another world. But anyway, I could play all night. But you want to get some.
How about Dark Town?
Sure. Oh yeah, sure. That's like yeah.
Didn't they ever have any women that were musicians?
Yes, Miss Emma. There were a few, particularly piano players. Miss Emma, she was a character. She was called Sweet Emma. The way you might call a 300-pound man tiny. She was not sweet. She was tough, but she had had a stroke and she couldn't play with her left hand. But that didn't stop her. She was bedridden all day, and then they'd bring her out in a wheelchair, bring her into the hall, and I had to help them carry her up and put her the wheelchair up by the piano. So when she knew, I eventually played left hand for her. But she said, "You stay out, stay away from me. Just play. You play there. Don't go someplace else." But I loved playing for her. But when the band was going really wild and the band was so noisy, she had a bag of fried chicken. And she would sometimes eat a piece of chicken, and then she'd throw a little water at people, if they annoyed her, some of the tourists. But she knew a good band, and she'd always say to me, "What wind brought you in? What wind blew you in when I arrived?" But that was the way she was. But she really did love you, and she always said, "Now when you get back to New Jersey, you phone me." And she was on the phone all night, always talking to musicians. She had played in the black vaudeville halls, and she had played. I don't think she actually had played for Bessie Smith, but other people had. And I was dealing with real history here. There were people who were, the first trumpet player, the first leader of a band was Buddy Bolden, and I met his cousin, and then people would tell me things, kind of like, "Oh yeah, I remember when I was very young, I slept in the same bed as my great-grandmother, and she would speak African." And I'm thinking, well, that's, this is how close to slavery these people were. I also knew that if we left the city, it wasn't always, in those days, in the 70s, always the easiest thing for white people and black people to socialize outside of the city. In the city, you could. But I have 100 stories about them and everything. But yeah, that's so. I bet I should end on something since you got to go.
Do you have?
Or I can keep playing if you want. But I don't want. Yeah. So I'm gonna play it.
Talk about like black vaudeville.
Yeah.
Got any Eubie Blake in here?
Is there? Do you like?
Do you have any Eubie Blake in your back pocket?
Actually, Eubie Blake heard me play. I'm so sorry about that. He was there for Jazz Fest, and there was a jam session after in the one of the I can't think of the name, a French name, hotel, and I was playing, and people said, "Who was listening to you?" I said, "No, Eubie Blake," because he lived to 100, and of course his famous songs. But again, he wasn't New Orleans. He was from the north. Let's see, what was his favorite song? His most famous song was. But he wrote a beautiful song. This was what? Let's see.